All right, hello and welcome to Mr. Pisto Plays top 5 Brawl Commanders for Phyrexia. All will be one. This is more of my top 5 favorite picks. I don't necessarily think that these might be the strongest, but they're the ones that I'm going to have the most fun playing with. So, what are your thoughts? Comment in the description or a comment in the comment section below. What are your favorite commanders that you're looking forward to play in Phyrexia? All will be one. It could be historic brawl. It could also be regular standard brawl. This list is dedicated to standard brawl. We're going to go through 5 commanders with 6 cards that I think will be pivotal before those decks from Phyrexia. All will be one. So like, subscribe, notify, check out my Patreon. Content goes up there outside of the YouTube channel. You get some behind the scenes deck text type stuff. I have a Twitch, which I'll be hopefully starting up here on a regular normal schedule soon. And there's a Discord channel. So think about joining the Discord. We talk about the decks that I'm brewing and the decks that go, the videos and the cards that go into the videos. So with that being said, let's start off with my 5th favorite card from the set, that being Phyrexia Betrayal's Sting. So this can be either 5 mana or 6 mana, depending on if you want to play the completed cost or not. It's a 6 loyalty if you pay the full 6 mana. It is 4 if you pay the 5 mana. It has 0, draw a card, you lose 1 life and proliferate. So this means basically it's a +1. But the proliferate means you can do a whole bunch of other things, add more counters. -2, target creature becomes a treasure artifact. With tap, sacrifice this artifact, add 1 mana of any color, and loses all other card types and abilities. So this protects itself from another creature that's on the battlefield. And finally, one of the reasons why I really think this is cool is if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. So this is going to be a mono black toxic / poison counter deck. And this first card here, the Billows Skull Wheeler, is a 1 mana 1/1 death touch with toxic 1. So this is that new keyword. It has some cards of toxic 1, there's toxic 2, there's toxic, I think there might be toxic 3, I can't really remember. But players dealt combat damage by this creature also get a poison counter. So dealing 1 to their 20 point life, and they're dealing 1 poison counter to their 10-point poison counter thing. The fact that Phyrexia proliferates means we can hopefully stack on the poison counters pretty quick and win through that way. I like this prosthetic injector, 1 mana. Equipped creature gets +0/+2 and has toxic 1, so you can turn any one of your creatures into a toxic creature. Only costs 1 to equip, and it gives it a little bit bigger butt, so it'll survive a little bit longer. Then we have Kinzu, the Bleak Coven, 5 mana, 5/4 flyer. It's another legendary creature. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, you may pay 2 life and exile it. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 1/1 that has toxic 1. So we're hopefully, we're probably going to play out some flyers alongside Phyrexia in this deck, and then Kinzu can turn those flyers into toxic dealing creatures when they die. We have Black Sun's Twilight. This is a black and X. Up to 1 target creature gets -X/-X until the end of turn. That if X is 5 or more, return a creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Tapped. So this can be a removal spell, and it can be a regeneration spell. So it's very flexible. If you, for 6 mana, which is Phyrexia casting cost, you can kill something and also bring something back. So that's very powerful because a lot of the cards are going to be that 5 converted mana cost or less. We have Phyrexian Obliterator, black 5/5 trample. Whenever a source deals damage to Phyrexian Obliterator, that source's controller sacrifices that many permanents. It's just the mono black staple from now until it rotates out of standard. If you're playing mono black, you're playing for Obliterator. And then we have Phyrexian Arena, another one of those reprints. Black 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. So this is going to be another mono black staple. So I wanted to show those cards along with some of the other new stuff in this format. On to deck or card number 4 on my list of cards of commanders that I'm going to enjoy playing is Glissa Sun Slayer. Is a 3-mana 3/3 first strike death touch. Whenever Glissa deals damage or combat damage to a player, choose one. You draw a card, lose 1 life, destroy enchantment, or remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. So this is going to be, I think, Golgari Toxic. I think I'm going to play with this one with some bigger, fatter creatures. So this is a 3-mana 4/4 Trample Toxic 1. Whenever Bloated Contaminator deals combat damage to a player, proliferate. So we're drawing cards with Glissa to make it so that we can get cards out faster. And this Bloated Contaminator being a 4/4 for 3 mana with Trample is it's just kind of a broken stat line. And proliferating is a wonderful thing. We have Noxious Assault, 5 mana. Creatures you control get +2/+2 until the end of turn. Whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller gets a poison counter. So this is an overrun that if you're playing Toxic and they block, you attack with 5 creatures and they block all 5 of your creatures, they get 5 Toxic counters. If they don't block, then they're getting dealt a whole bunch of damage. I don't know if this card was a mistake, or maybe I'm reading whenever a creature blocks this turn, its controller gets a poison. So I'm not sure if this stacks. I should stack, but it's a pretty powerful finisher in low to the ground kind of toxic deck like we're going to be playing here. We have Infectious Bite. Instant, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. Each opponent gets a poison counter. This is a way to get the poison counters started and also remove a creature from play. Then we have the Venerated Rot Priest. Is a 1 mana 1/2 with Toxic, and whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison counter. So if you play this early, you are probably going to start the poison counters going. If you get this late and they're already at 6, 7, 8 counters, it makes it so they can't target your creatures without potentially dying. So it's I think a very powerful card in a Toxic deck that's focusing with green. We have Blight Belly Rat. Is a 2 mana 2/2 Toxic 1. When it dies, proliferate. So green has a lot of the proliferate abilities along with Toxic. So combining black and green, a lot of the cards you saw with previous card with our Vraska will play in a deck like this Glissa Sun's Slayer deck. And then finally we have Necrogen Rot Priest. A 4 mana 1/5 Toxic 2, so it deals 1 regular damage but 2 toxic. Whenever a creature you control with Toxic deals combat damage to a player, that player gets an additional poison counter. So this triggers, I'm assuming, on itself, so it's kind of like Toxic 3. And then target creature you control with Toxic gains Death Touch until the end of turn. So this makes all your Toxic creatures not fun to block. It itself is a great blocker, being a 1/5. It lives quite a few things. I think the Golgari Toxic deck is also going to be a lot of fun in this format. All right, standard Brawl deck number 3 is Nissa Ascended Animist. 7 mana, 7 loyalty planeswalker. Completed, so you can pay the 2 life. And for each 2 life that you pay, this planeswalker enters the battlefield with 2 fewer loyalty counters. So you can play this for 5, and it comes out as a 3 loyalty planeswalker, or you play 7 and it comes out as a 7 loyalty planeswalker. You create a 1 or an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token where X is Nissa's Ascendance. Loyalty, you can destroy an artifact or enchantment. Or if you play this on 7, you can effectively nuke it on the turn you play it. And until the end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each forest you control and gain trample. So ideally, you're like land ramping, and you can land ramp this. Maybe you have 6 lands and a creature. You play this, you minus this, your creatures get a whole bunch of stats, and kind of like a Crater Hoof. So it's like a Crater Hoof on a planeswalker. that also destroys artifacts and enchantments, and also protects itself with a potentially really large creature. Because you could play it +1, -7 the next turn, still have the Planeswalker, and have a giant token. So with this, we have a few ramping spells. We have Armored Scrap Gorger, 2 mana 0/3. It gets +3/+low as long as it has 3 or more oil counters. So this is another new mechanic in this format. We have oil counters. And this taps to add 1 mana of any color. And when it becomes tapped, exile target card from a graveyard and put an oil counter. Scrap Goat. So potentially, after you tap it 3 times, you have a 3/3, which is quite good for 2 mana. And it also will help you ramp into Nissa. We have Unnatural Restoration. This is 2 mana to return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Proliferate. So another powerful proliferate card. We have Green Sun's Twilight. Green and X. Reveal the top X +1 cards of your library. Choose a creature card and or land card from among them. Put those cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is 5 or greater, instead put the chosen cards onto the battlefield or into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So this, because we're potentially ramping so hard with Nissa's Ascended Animus, I think this is going to be able to hit 5 mana quite often. So you're getting to put something very powerful in the play or into your hand if you want to actually cast it and get the cast ability on your next turn. We have Canker Bloom, 2 mana 3/2. You can pay 1 to sacrifice it to destroy an artifact, destroy enchantment, or to proliferate. So this is like the werewolf that we had, but the werewolf also was able to flip and then attack and destroy something when it attacked. This gives you only the sacrificing option, but you can also proliferate, which can be very powerful. Then we have Conduit of Worlds, 4 mana artifact. You may play land cards from your graveyard. You can also tap and choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can't cast additional spells this turn. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is kind of a late game. Let's use our graveyard as a hand. Sure, we're only going to be able to cast one thing, but hopefully that one thing costs all your mana, or you have some instants and sorceries that you can leave up. This gives you the option to play your graveyard as your hand, which is a pretty cool thing. Then we have one colorless artifact. It is Mere Convent, or Convert, 2 mana 2/1 with Toxic, and you can pay 2 life and add 1 mana color. So we have a couple of new mana rampers. We have a cool X spell, a cool way to use our graveyard, and another new destroy target artifact or enchantment spell. And this Ascendant Amethyst, I think, is going to be a really fun mono green ramp deck format. On the deck, number 2, my second favorite, is Mondrak Glory Dominus. 4 mana 4/4. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And you can pay the Phyrexian, and 1 to sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures to put an indestructible counter on Mondrak Glory Dominus. So mono white tokens. I think it's going to be a fun one. We have the Eternal Wanderer. I think could also be another fun commander. It's a 6 loyalty, 6 mana, 5 loyalty planeswalker, and it makes it so that only 1 creature can attack this creature each turn. You can exile up to 1 target artifact or creature, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's next end step. So if you have creatures that when they enter the battlefield create more creatures, you'll be able to create more blockers that way. You can 0 it to create a samurai token, and if you have Mondrak on the battlefield, you get 2 of those tokens. Or you can -4, and for each player, choose a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen way. So you could pick their little token thing that they have generated and keep Mondrak out on the battlefield, and then they have to you and the opponent sacrifices everything. They keep their worst creature, you keep your planeswalker, or you keep your commander, or you keep another card that's really powerful. White Sun's Twilight, 2 and an X. You gain X life, create X/1/1 colorless Phyrexian artifact creature tokens with Toxic 1, and these creature can't block. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So if we do this for like 4, so 6 mana, and we have Mondrak out, we get 8 of those tokens. So, or if we want to blow up the board, we can potentially make Mondrak indestructible, put an indestructible counter, play this, keep our Mondrak, have a whole bunch of tokens, and we're off to the races. Charge of the Mites, 3 mana, choose 1. Target Charge of the Mites deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature or planeswalker, or you can create 2 colorless Phyrexia Mite artifact creature tokens, toxic 1, and they can't block. So you get 4 tokens with Mondrak out. Or hopefully we're going wide enough that this could be just a straight up removal spell for us. Then we have Norn's Wellspring, 2 mana, sacrifice. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1 and put an oil counter on Norn Wellspring. You can remove 2 oil counters from this and draw a card. So this is our card draw. We're going wide with tokens. We're scrying a lot. I think it's going to be powerful in a Mondrak deck, and this is the card for the art in our background. Beautiful art. We have Vanish into Eternity, 3 mana, exile target non-land permanent. If you want to target a creature, you have to add 3 extra mana to this. So we're dealing with planeswalkers, we're dealing with artifacts, we're dealing with enchantments. For 3 mana, and for 6 mana, we're dealing with creatures. So it has a little bit of flexibility, and you can use it early or you can use it late. Finally, the other really big creature that I think a lot more people are talking about over Mondrak is Elesh Norn, Mother of Machines. 5 mana, 4/7. It has Vigilance. A permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger. That ability triggers an additional time. So hopefully we're playing a bunch of creatures that do things when they enter the battlefield, create tokens, and this helps us double those. And then permanents entering the battlefield don't cause abilities of permanents your opponents control to trigger. So I think in some ways these could probably be interchangeable to a certain degree. But in my opinion, I think I'm going to have more fun playing Mondrak than I'm going to have fun playing Norn. All right, number 1. On to number 1. What is your number 1? Put that in the comments before we get there. And number 1 for me, I think you're going to tell from this video what my favorite color in Magic is Thrun, Breaker of Silence. This card is bonkers. 5 mana, 5/5, can't be countered. It has trample. Can't be the target of non-green spells your opponents control or abilities from non-green sources your opponents control. As long as it's your turn, Thrun has indestructible. So the only way they're getting rid of this is board wipes or dealing damage type effects with their own greens. So this card is quite powerful. It's a very good attacker. It carries equipment very well. We have cards like Evolving Adaptive, so this is definitely the top end of a mono green stompy deck. This is a 1 mana 0/0, enters the battlefield with an oil counter, and it gets +1/+1 for each oil counter whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control. If that creature's power is greater power or toughness than Evolving Adaptive, put an oil counter on this. So it's kind of like, what's that card? There was a 1/1 a while back that you could remove 2 1/1 counters on it, and it regenerated. It doesn't look quite as powerful, but it could be quite good with Proliferate. Definitely a thing. Evolving Spinoderm, 4 mana, 5/5. It enters the battlefield with 4 oil counters. Evolved Spinoderm has trample as long as it has 2 or fewer oil counters on it. Otherwise, it has hexproof. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove an oil counter from Evolved Spinoderm. Then, if it has no oil counters on it, sacrifice it. So we're going to be hopefully playing with a lot of Proliferate type things to make this card not go away. And it's just stats to converted mana cost is just so good. Then we have Ichor Plate Golem, 3 mana 2/3. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it has 1 or more oil counters on it, put an oil counter on it. And then creatures you control with oil counters on them get +1/+1. So it's kind of a lord in the deck that I'm planning on building with this. And it also makes Evolving Adaptive come in as a 2/2. Evolve Spinoderm gets an extra oil counter, and all in all, just a good all-around thing. You have Tyvar Stan, 1 and X. Target creature gets +X until the end of turn and gains hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. So you can pay 1 and give your creature hexproof and indestructible. If you're attacking, you can add on to the X to make it bigger. If you're blocking, you can add X on to make it bigger to block better. It's a very powerful, another one of those give target creature hexproof and indestructible. We have Ruthless Predation, which is a 2-mana sorcery. Target creature you control gets +1/+2 until the end of turn. It fights target creature you don't control. So with Thrun basically having hexproof from everything but green, Shroud, hexproof, whatever you want to call from green, this is a very powerful. These kind of effects are very powerful with Thrun, Breaker of Silence. And then finally we have another sword. Finally, Sword of Forge and Frontiers, a 3-mana, 2-equip. Equip creature blitz +2/+2 has protection from red and from green. So if you put this on Thrun, it has protection from every color now, because this can only be targeted by green spells and green abilities. Sword of Forge and Frontier gives this protection from green, which means it has protection from everything. Whenever equipped creature does combat damage to a player, exile the top 2 cards of your library. You may play one of those cards this turn. You may play an additional land this turn. So it kind of gives it's not the most powerful sword in the world, but giving +2/+2 and protection from red and from green. The green is very relevant, like I said. It's just another equipment that we can play to give Thrun, Breaker of Silence, even more power and even toughness. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my top 5 cards, legendary creatures and planeswalkers from Phyrexia all will be one. And those cards, to recap, were number 5, Vraska's Betrayal Sting. Looking forward to playing some mono black Toxic. Glissa Sunslayer. Looking forward to playing some Golgari Toxic. Nissa Ascended Amethyst or Animist. Looking forward to play some mono green Ramp. Mondrak Glory Dominus. Looking forward to play some mono white tokens. And Thrun Breaker of Silence. Looking forward to play some mono green Stompy. So what are your 5? Like I said before, link or comments in the description below. Thank you, Jimmy Colorado, for being a Patreon supporter. If you want to support the channel that way, Patreon's in the description below. Come join our Brawl centered I'm blanking here. Discord. Come join our Discord, links in the description below. Catch me on Twitch every once in a while. Have a wonderful morning, afternoon, evening, or night, wherever you are in the world. From Mr. Pisto, see you. Stay safe. Bye for now.